We're in the wake of the World Cup final, just ended about an hour ago. Spain 1-0 victory over the Netherlands, their first world title. Andres Iniesta with a 116-minute goal, the only scoring of the match, 1-0 Spain with the victory. Bring in now Kartik Krishnaiyer and Lawrence McKenna. Let's just get your general thoughts. Lawrence, you first. General thoughts on the 2010 World Cup final.
Well, we've mentioned before narrative at numerous points in the season and now in this World Cup. There was such a strong sense of right and wrong in this match, such a strong sense of the critical players. And overall, you have to say that this game had everything that you'd want in a final. There was passion, there was lust for the ball, and there were some wonderful touches as well. And not only that, but there was a bad guy and a good guy, which part of me really likes to see at this World Cup.
Absolutely, but before we get into that very much, or maybe you want to talk about this, Kartik, but I want to just get your overall thoughts on the match.
I thought the match was well played by Spain. They moved the ball well. Their back line was solid. The Dutch very negative, as we had fretted about on the previous podcast, that they would set up this way. Very chippy, really kind of overturning their own legacy in football. This is a game that maybe here in the United States people took well to because it resembled an American football game, the way the Dutch played. Really for a country. I mean, I'm not one of these people like a lot of the Madridistas in the press in Spain that says, oh, anything that doesn't play into our style is anti-football, because the Spanish have this thing about the purity of football, but the Dutch did not need to play this way. They have enough talent that they don't have to resort to the tactics that Switzerland and the United States did against Spain. But that's why they were on the back foot for much of the day, and ultimately they're bridesmaids again.
Yeah, gentlemen, I've been thinking about this in the 15 minutes or so that we've been sitting here preparing for this show, how quickly we want to get into the negative aspects of this game, because Spain certainly deserves some credit, but Lawrence, it really is difficult to come away from this match and not have a negative mindset, because we really did witness something that in its kind of sinister way is very special, the way that the Netherlands very cynically approached this match.
Agreed, but then you'd say that the game balanced out, and overall the result probably reflects the good guy and the bad guy that I mentioned at the beginning. But despite their cynical approach, I still think that we've seen some reasonable football from the Netherlands at this World Cup, and it's sad at the end of this tournament to see them have to resort to this, because they don't need to. I mean, really, it's a case of mentality here for me, and how you want to approach a side which is clearly superior in certain areas, but clearly has Achilles' heels, and we saw those Achilles' heels revealed in this match. And let's not get it mixed up here. The Netherlands had their chances and just didn't take them, and frustration probably got the better of them overall in this match. I just think that it depends at what point your players begin to snap, and certain players go out there with the disposition to try and make things a little hotter, if you like. It fizzled and popped at times, and I really enjoyed that in this game. I liked the early passion, and not only that, but the way that the referee controlled it so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about Howard Webb in a second, but Kartik, I want to get your thoughts on this in general. How much of this match are you going to remember for how Bert van Marwijk and the Netherlands approached it, and how much are you going to remember it as kind of a crowning achievement for a great Spanish team?
I'll remember it for the former more than anything. I think it was cynical in nature how they approached it. Van Bommel, De Jong, both probably should have been sent off within the first 20 minutes, but Howard Webb smartly did not want to influence the game that greatly by sending a guy off, and I think the Dutch understood that. The thing that bothered me about Spain was that the Spanish players at one point in the game lost their composure and were not playing. They didn't continue to play. They were looking for the contact. They were looking for the foul. And I can't. That's a natural human reaction. They can't be blamed for that. But the champions that they are, Euro champions and World Cup champions, that was surprising. They did regain their composure and obviously went on to win this match. But I think the storyline is about how the Dutch approached it and how, again, this is not Switzerland. This is not the United States. This is not Turkey. You don't have to play this way.
Yeah, I think we're going to spend a lot of this podcast talking about that, but I do want to hit a lot of the aspects of Spain before we switch to that, kind of give them their due by at least going first with them. But Kartik, as this match was unfolding, I kept thinking about the stories you hear about what happened in 1966 to Brazil, and basically they were allowed to be kicked out of the tournament, the way that the refereeing was there. And when Arjen Robben had his first breakaway chance of the second half, I thought that this Spain team was going to go down that same path. Clearly a superior team, a team that is incredibly talented, but because of a tactic that I don't think very many of us can really support, they were in danger of losing this one. I'm really thankful that Spain got that late goal from Andres Iniesta, but how do you think the Spanish team would be remembered had one of those Arjen Robben chances been converted?
Well, Robin didn't have the composure to finish either chance. I mean, he was looking for calls the whole game. He was complaining to the official. Howard Webb did a masterful job of allowing him to stay on the pitch, considering his behavior, considering his absolute just maniacal behavior on the pitch. And he didn't have the composure to finish either of those. He was psychologically, he was somewhere else. He was looking he had a victimization complex today, as he's had in much of the tournament since he got back from injury. So I don't think he would have finished either of those chances, actually. I don't even think they're worth discussing.
Yeah, just his reaction to the second one, where he immediately turned to Howard Webb, started running after him, and I was like, wow, there must have really been a foul there. But then you see the replays, and you're just like, he never was going to complete that no matter what. He did.
If anything, it was a foul on him. He puts his arm back on the Spanish defender.
Lawrence, I want to go back to this correlation I made between the '66 Brazil team that didn't do too well in England. Do we have to give Spain some credit because they were able to overcome this, where some great teams in the past haven't been able to overcome these kind of tactics?
Yeah, the phrase greater than the sum of their parts comes to mind here. And I think that the team mentality of Spain ultimately won out here. There were a lot of individuals on the opposition side playing for themselves, essentially, for a lot of this match. And I think that the fact that there were some wonderful individuals on the Spain side really won out, but it's the fact they could get them to play so well together. But having said that, I think there's one player that stands out as the man that really summed the mentality up today, and it was Andres Iniesta, and he is going to be the iconic figure that is remembered in the final, not only for his goal, but for the fact that he took on Van Bommel at times single-handedly. I think he put the Spain team on his back for that time when Kartik says that their mentality changed. And I thought that he brought them through that very well with Xavi. And they were critical in the midfield in this game and didn't allow Spain to be kicked out of this match. They kept the passing going. They kept the rhythm of that Spanish side. And ultimately, I think it's down to those two players, maybe three players with Fabregas there as well, keeping the rhythm of this Spanish side. And ultimately, I think that's what kept them going and kept their momentum when the Dutch ultimately broke down.
Yeah, to me, I think Andres Iniesta certainly had a great game today. And after a season where he's had a lot of injuries, and he had some injuries the season before last too, it was a great reminder, to me at least, that there really isn't a lot that separates Xavi and Andres Iniesta. And Kartik, that's one of the things that I'm going to take from this match, this kind of symbiotic relationship that those two midfielders have, those two Barcelona midfielders. Just the fact that you get these two players on a team, and you look at the rest of the players on this team, except for maybe Iker Casillas, I didn't see a lot of great performances. I didn't see bad performances either. But these two really seem to will this team through the whole knockout stage, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and I think their connection also with Busquets stimulating the midfield play out of the holding midfield role, another familiar player to them from Barcelona, and the potential of what we're going to see from Barca this season with Villa moving there. The runs Villa was making today off the ball were so good, so crisp, even though he was getting fouled a lot. David Villa, I think, is another player that, even though he got subbed out in this match, he didn't get the goal. He did not win the Golden Boot. That goes to Thomas Muller. I think that he should be remembered also, along with Xavi and Iniesta, as the triumvirate, so to speak, that carried Spain to their first world title.
I certainly think that we shouldn't lose sight of David Villa. He carried the team to this point. Up until this match, he scored 5 of their 7 goals, ends up scoring 5 of their 8 goals in this tournament. But Lawrence, I think the third player that comes to mind to me today, and it's really hard to avoid it, is Iker Casillas, because of the two ways that he approached those breakaways that Arjen Robben has. And throughout this year, there had been a lot of conversation that maybe Casillas had been slipping a bit, that he wasn't one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But today, he really saved his team.
In my mind, there's never been doubt as to whether he's, first of all, the